Seeking the wise.
With Aaron and Alexander discussing the Just philosophy.
Covering self-development, emotional processing, conscious relationships, and 5 levels of overall wellness.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise podcast. Today, I am going to be sharing my top 10 most useful aspects of the Just philosophy within my experience of the last 8+ years interacting and utilizing the Just philosophy within my life and within my self-growth practice. So for those who are new, about 8 years ago, I was coming off of a long-term breakup. I was living in a home in the middle of nowhere with nobody else around, and I was working from home. So I was completely isolated, and I had just moved there a couple of years prior to that, and I had not built up a social network. So I was kind of at a low point in my life, and I didn't know what to do, how to even look at the world, how to even live. I was really lost and confused. And this is when I happened to meet Alexander and be introduced into the Just philosophy. And so that's kind of the space that I'm coming from. I was also somebody who was not emotionally mature. I was very much in my ego. I was a fiery Aries, and I was out to prove that I was right about everything. So if any of those aspects are similar to where you may be, then this information, may prove to be useful for you. But just consider all these perspectives and how they've helped me within a few of my experiences, and, try to apply them to your life and see where they could fit. Maybe some of these top 10 could trigger some interest in you, and I will name an episode that you can go back to get a little more information on this. So before I get started, if you are listening in the audio format of this podcast, we do have video podcasts of this podcast, and we've been doing that for about a year now, and you can get all of that on our YouTube channel. Please feel free to subscribe and like our videos on there. We are really trying hard to grow our YouTube channel and get more people involved and get our videos seen by more people on that platform. So within this top 10 list, I did rank them from 1st to 10th, one being the most impactful. Of course, some of these may not be as pertinent or important to you, but these are just the top 10 most useful ones that I could come up with within all of my experiences and that have made a huge impact in my life over the last 8 years. I am going to list them from least important, even though they're all important. They all have their own importance here, but I just had some fun with ranking them. And so that maybe that can help you see which ones that you want to prioritize looking into more. So anyway, with that said, we will get right into the top 10 most useful and impactful aspects of the Just philosophy in my life over the last 8 years. Coming in at number 10, we have roles, and this applies to a pillar that says everyone and every situation can be your teacher if you choose. So this has a lot to do with taking the personal out of the things that happen to you and the people around you that you may feel like they do things to you to agitate you, to trigger you, to disappoint you. And all of this is for us to understand aspects of ourself that we haven't fully healed or that we need to just adjust and work on our perspectives around. So, of course, this can go back to childhood trauma, but, there is a lot of cultural influence, again, that we take on where, through the movies that we watch and even through the generations, how people have been brought up have caused people to have some of these things. So if I invite a friend over and they tell me they're coming, and then at the last minute they say, hey, yeah, I'm not going to make it. So that can cause some frustration within me, if I allow it. But really, it's showing me where I had an expectation that person was going to come. Of course, they told me they were, but we can't fully put our trust in people. That's been proven to everybody within their life. People will disappoint, but also we have disappointed people as well. So it's not really our responsibility to fulfill other people's expectations, but roles is a very integral part, just taking the personal out of everyone and everything that happens to us and turning it internal for us to make the things that we go through useful to us. Because if we're not taking a moment to look at how we can change in how we react to the people and the things that are happening around us, then what good is even going through it? Like, let's make things useful for us within our lives. So again, I know I just kind of explained it, but this has been very impactful with expectations. Most importantly, understanding when I have expectations, where I have expectations, and understanding that the cost of having those expectations is disappointment. And whenever I have disappointment over a certain situation not going the way that I wanted to or way I expected, then I know that falls on me. Like, that's my responsibility. I had that expectation, and sometimes we can't not have expectations. So it's important to go easy on yourself. But, like, for instance, at the time of this recording, I'm a UConn Huskies men's basketball fan. I have been since I was 8, and they're in the Final Four, and I could have an expectation that they're going to win, and just doing a self check, I kind of do. But if for some reason they lost, if I'm going to feel emotion around that, I may, and if I do, then I know that I was not purely neutral around that situation, and that's okay. It's just good to understand that so we can work on it. So in the future, each time we do this, it gets less and less and less. And I have worked on this. We've talked about it within sports over the past 8 years. I used to get really angry when my sports team lost. And of course, I chose one that loses a lot. So I didn't want that to have that effect on me and have that influence and that power over me. So I took the power back within myself and said, yeah, I'm going to manage these expectations. I'm going to manage this possible disappointment because I don't like that feeling. And I feel that the idea around roles, the ways that we discuss them, and that pillar, everyone in every situation can be your teacher, has been very pivotal in helping me do that. So if you're interested in learning more about that one, check out episode 37 called Understanding Roles That We and Others Play and Utilizing Them to Further Our Self-Growth. Coming in at number 9, we have the importance of understanding the energetic costs of our choices. And this can even go back to number 10 of roles, where I could take out choices and put preferences in there. Because if I have a preference that UConn wins that game, and of course I do because I'm a fan, but there's a difference in investing emotional energy into a game and preferring that your team wins, but you're adjusting your intention around watching the game to just enjoy it. It's kind of like watching a movie. Like, if you're watching a movie and like your favorite actor doesn't like win in your eyes, do you get upset after the movie's over? I mean, I'm sure there can be some like impact on how you feel, how a movie makes you feel, and I think that's the importance of art in that cinema form. But you're not like angry that your character didn't win. You don't carry that through, and that doesn't change how you treat other people around you like the rest of the week, does it? I mean, it's a little different. Like sports, we get so invested in it that we need our team to win, and then we talk trash before the game to other people about our team and how they're gonna stomp the other team, and then when it doesn't happen, then you've like future invested all that energy, and now you're stuck like eating crow, as they say. But that can bring on some shame and some just frustration, and so it's probably not smart to do that if you're working on yourself and you want to watch your energy and kind of contain that. So the importance of understanding the cost of things has been really helpful. Just before you make a decision, before you invest your emotional energy into something, you want to understand what the cost is. And this goes back to that famous phrase that there's no such thing as a free lunch, which talks about if somebody offers you a free lunch, it's not really free because there's another choice that you could have made that you're losing out on in that time, in that experience. So it's not saying that there's anything bad about that. We all have to make choices. So it's just understanding that by making this choice, you're losing out on this choice, and there's just a cost. And even with your actions, like if you continue to choose to have emotional reactions on the people around you that you love, there's a cost and effect to that. Like if you are emotionally slapping somebody, metaphorically, if you're emotionally verbally abusing somebody, that's going to impact how they treat you. Like they're not going to treat you better. So to take out your frustration on how you feel somebody else isn't treating you a certain way, by taking out your emotion on them, that's not going to help them, understand your point of view. Like they're only going to probably push away more. So again, this has helped me in countless areas of my life. And I mean, again, just from that example of the sports, just understanding the cost that when I watch a sport and when I emotionally invest in that, when that outcome that I want does not happen, that cost is that feeling after. And I didn't want that feeling anymore. I didn't want to be held hostage by my emotions. So I made the choice to work on myself around that. And so I consciously made that choice. I altered my perspective first within that. And then I just kept feeling into that. Every time it happened, I would feel into that. I would ask myself, Aaron, why, what are you getting out of this? What are you doing? And then it slowly worked its way through all 5 levels of my being. And I'm at a good place now with that. So number 8 is the 3 questions for finding our authentic self. So obviously, when we're talking about self-development, we have to know who we actually are. And that includes how we were energetically made when we came into this reality, and what is our passion? What do we juice on in life? And that's going to tell us, the direction that we need to go to really feel alive. Because if we're made to be an artist, but we're currently working, in a grocery store, bagging or cashier, then we may feel like some sort of depression because we're not being fed all the time. And of course, we can work on those things outside our job. Our job doesn't have to be our passion, but we have to understand that. And that goes back to understanding the energetic costs of our choices, because we can make that trade-off. This has helped me tremendously understand, what I juice on. And that has, changed throughout my life, but this has helped me find that underlying theme for me that resonates throughout all the things that I'm interested in as I go throughout my life. And I discovered that it is that I love to create experiences for people. So when I was 13, I taught myself how to develop websites. And then I went to college for it. And then I've been in that industry since then, since I was 20, in a business corporate setting, developing websites. So I've loved doing it because it challenges my mental, but you can also be a little creative with how you come to the solution, because it's not necessarily a one size fits all solution all the time. But it has become less challenging for me the more I grow into my self-growth. So I had to question, is my passion web development, or is it something within that is the passion? And then I looked at all the other things that I really loved. Like I love cooking for people, making a meal that has certain tastes in it that you could really discover that is not like normal, or like creating a scavenger hunt where it's a whole experience for people. It's something that they don't do all the time. Like music is a big one. Like I love sharing music with people because I have a very emotional tie with music, and it helps like bring up certain experiences and emotions and feelings and memories and thoughts. And I want other people to experience that because it has such an impact. And I understand some people aren't like me and they may not experience the same thing. That's cool. But I just love to create it and then watch them interact with it. And of course, like, it's important for me to not have expectations on how they interact with it. So if I make food, like, if they hate it, if I had an expectation that they would love it the same as me, I could get a little disappointed, and I have. But this has helped me understand that the underlying theme of websites, of cooking, of scavenger hunts, of all that is I love to create experiences for people so they can just pause from all this busyness, be still, and enjoy flavors, enjoy sound, enjoy, interacting on a website, all of that. So the same theme has been there my entire life. So these 3 questions, as simple as they are, they really help me dive deep into really intentionally understanding who I am, what I'm about, and how I exemplify this in a way where it helps me to go back to as that foundation of who I am, and just keep refining it and keep going back to it to stand in my power. And it also has helped me set boundaries more, because I'm like, when I have a decision to make, I go back to that and I say, is this who I am? Is this what I'm about? Is this how I want to exemplify something? And if the answer is no, then I set a boundary with that. And I am an open-hearted individual. So my challenge here is to work on how I set boundaries. I need to set more boundaries. So, all right. So if you want to check out number 8, the 3 questions for finding your authentic self, you can hit up episode 73, which is titled The 3 Questions for Finding Your Authentic Self. Coming in at number 7 is the 3 R's. So many of you have probably understood this and utilized this kind of tool and technique that we've talked about at length. The 3 R's is a process that you go through where you recognize, you respect, and you redirect. And I think so many people understand the recognize part, the awareness part of a trauma, or when you're in some sort of emotional trigger, just understanding that you're in that trigger and where it came from. And then the redirection part is to not do that again, to work on not having that trigger. But the aspect that I want to focus on within these 3 R's that I feel like is not talked about enough in this culture, in the self-growth area of self-development, is the respect part, that middle part, where in order to properly redirect in a conscious way and a consistent way, and to be successful in this redirection, is the respect, is understanding why and getting good with that. So if you're talking about a past childhood trauma, and it's something that maybe your parents did to you, that you feel like they did to you when you were a child. And so the awareness part is, oh, my parents did this to me, and this is why I'm like that. And then the redirect part is, okay, I'm going to learn not to do that anymore, or not to feel that way anymore. But the respect part is to understand and forgive your parents, to understand that they were doing the best that they could, and forgive them for that. And to not take it personally that they did this to you, so now you're stuck with this trigger. Everybody has trauma. So just understanding that this is just your life path. This is just something that you have to work on for your life. This is part of your agenda for this lifetime. And I feel like astrology, human design, destiny cards can help us understand these aspects, because if you take 2 different people and put them in the same situation, they may not have the same trauma as the other. And you can look at your siblings like this. Like, I look at my siblings. I've had like money trauma in the past, where it's been hard for me to trust the divine that I'm going to get and receive what I need. And so I would worry about money. But I remember being a child and my parents fighting about money, and I was in my bed, in the middle of the night, and I woke up and I'm hearing them and I'm having anxiety over it, over how they're going to pay their bills. And I'm like 8. But my other sisters don't really have that, or at least we've never talked about it as much. But I'm a double diamond card within the destiny cards. And my older sister is as well, not the same numbers though. and my younger sister is not. So you can see how the different situations in our energetic designs play a role in how we take on trauma. So we're not all the same. We all have our different things that we have to deal with. And it doesn't help to be in resistance and to hold on to grudges about that. You can't heal or manage your childhood trauma. You can't move past it if you're still clenching like this, like I'm angry about it. Because when you're this is resistance. You're holding on to something. You're holding on to it. But if you let it go, if you find forgiveness, then you're letting it go, and then your body can let it go. So the respect part has been huge for me because everybody wants to recognize, redirect, because that's what you do. Like those are like the two action items of that tool. But the respect is like the internal, is the alternative perspectives that you have to bring in, and it takes time. That's the thing. Everybody just wants to recognize, redirect, recognize, redirect, recognize, redirect. It takes time. You have to sit with that respect. You have to bring in the understanding, and the more work that you do internally, the more you're going to understand the other people and why they do certain things. So if you want to check that episode out, that is episode 38, a powerful tool for navigating the emotional process, the 3 R's. And number 6 on the most useful aspects for me on my self-growth journey within the Just philosophy is the idea of attraction and love. And this is something that we've talked about a lot recently in the last couple of years. We've done a few episodes on this where love is a choice. It's something that you choose to do. You choose to do things for the people that you love. And attraction is how we're led, how we feel about a person energetically, like when we first meet them, or it doesn't even have to be a person. It can be, I was attracted to web development. Why was I attracted to that? What aspects were there? So we're attracted to things all the time. It can be a billboard. It can be a logo. I'm attracted to logos all the time. So it's cool to look at, to be conscious when we are in attraction. So conscious attraction, understanding, hey, I'm attracted to that person. That doesn't mean, like, I used to think, so this is like getting into my personal development. I used to think that if I was attracted to somebody, like I was supposed to be with them or talk with them on some level. And that's just not the case. That's not the case. I used to think that attraction was a sign that I was supposed to be with somebody if I had a high level of attraction. Of course, there's a reason why I'm attracted to that person. And that's up for me consciously to understand that. I don't need to interact with that person to understand it, but I can go deep and think about, okay, well, what is attractive about that person? Is it beyond physical? Is it the energetic? Is it something that I can put my fingers on, like put my mind to? Because if you're attracted to somebody energetically, you may not understand why you're attracted to them because it's an energetic thing. But if you know the person, if you get to know the person and you're attracted to them, and again, like it doesn't even have to be romantic. You could have a friend that you feel some attraction to, and it doesn't have to be romantic. It doesn't have to be physical. It can just be you really like that about that person. Like if they're funny, if they just have a way of making jokes right at the right time, like you are attracted to that part and aspect of their personality. So you could look at, okay, is it that I love that perspective? Maybe I need to have more of that perspective around that perspective of lightheartedness. Maybe I need to not take things so personally, so strict. Look at my life. Am I having more fun? Like, because if that person's fun and they're fun to be around, that means that I'm not allowing myself to have fun when I'm not around that person. So it's a really powerful aspect to dive into and utilize within your life. So coming at number 5 is creativity and how important creativity is and how that is intertwined with our sacral energy. This was huge for me because I'm a hugely creative person. 3-5 profile in the human design, 3 of diamonds as my birth card in the destiny cards. 3s are one of the most creative cards, energies out there. And I've been a creative person all my life again. And I remember a point in one of my long-term relationships where I was just so infatuated with design, and I would be pouring all of my energy into design. And then the relationship that I was in was suffering, and I didn't understand it. I just wanted to do design. And helping me understand that creative energy is the same as sexual energy, and it's also the same as anxiety or worry energy. And it all comes from the sacral chakra. That if you're using up all of your energy and creativity, you're probably not going to have a desire to interact with the sexual energy, and vice versa. If you're being all sexual, then you're probably not going to be creative, because it's one and the same energies. So when you burn it off, you burn it off. It's like if if I have some milk in a glass and I can choose to drink my milk, or I can pour it in cereal. If I drink all the milk, then I'm not going to have any for my cereal. But that's a choice. Like maybe I don't want to have cereal that day, so I can drink it all. So it's the same energy, but two different ways of burning it off. And then if you don't burn it off, then you're probably going to have a lot of anxiety and worry. And so if you do have a lot of anxiety and worry, then, look at how you're being creative and how important creativity is for burning that off. And, the Just philosophy talks about how creativity is anything that is not the mundane, anything that we don't normally do, or doing it in a different way. So eating with your left hand, or driving home a different way from work. All of these very simple things are being creative. Anything that is not the subconscious programming that we do every day. It's just doing something different. I know Alexander has talked about sitting in a different chair in your living room. If you're sitting in your living room, you mix it up. Sit in a different chair, sit in a different space, get a different perspective. That's going to help you. The more flexible you can be, and the more you put yourself in situations that are outside your subconscious, outside your mundane, your everyday, you're going to gain more perspectives, and that's only going to help you in your development. So again, this has helped me understand, be able to balance my energy, balance my creative energy, and manage it. It's all about management. Same as emotions, managing emotions, managing your energy. So if you're conscious about it, if you understand it, then you can manage it and you have more control over it, and it's not controlling you. So if you want to get more information or listen more into that creativity episode, it's episode 34, The Importance of Being Creative and Simple Ways to Achieve It. This is one of my favorite episodes of all time. Of course, we talk about all these things on multiple episodes, but these are just kind of like the hallmark foundation episodes for these topics. Coming in number 4 is living in non-preference and neutrality. This is a huge one for me because I came from a conspiracy background when I met Alexander. I've been into conspiracies for 16 years. It's not something that I chose. It's just how I'm wired. I'm wired to have a slanty eye, slight eye at authority. I like justice, and I'm always rooting for things to be equal or in a certain way, not like equal across, but just for fairness, basically. Fairness. That's a good word. And so when I met Alexander, I was big into conspiracies. And when you're into conspiracies, you're basically understanding that the world is different from how you've been taught. Things are not as fair as you thought they were. You're not on an even playing field. There's this group of rich Illuminati people who are making all the decisions that are eventually affecting everybody on this planet. It's one thing to have that perspective and just have a knowing of it. And it's another to actually be so emotionally invested in that you're blaming everything, everything that's wrong in your life on that. Like you're escaping responsibility. You're placing responsibility and accountability on this outside force that is making your life a living hell. And really, they're just making the large scale decisions, and they're not like controlling your emotions with your family members. They're not telling you to hold grudges with your mom, So, of course, they have some sort of influence on us, but it's all in that acceptance. So the idea of living in non-preference and neutrality has enormously helped me in this situation. Just taking a step back and understanding that this world is the way it is. It's always been this way. There's always been people trying to take power over everybody else's life, trying to control everybody, trying to trick people. It's always been this way. And it will continue to be this way until more and more people in their minds come to a neutral perspective and say, no more. But when you're emotional, and we're going to get into this a little later, but when you take an emotional side, you're actually growing the opposing side. So once I understood that, then I looked at how I'm giving my energy to this fight. And I was like, no, I if I'm taking a side and I'm actually growing the other side, then I need to stop doing that. I need to neutralize my energy. And by neutralizing my energy, my life has changed so much. It's like people say, turn off the news. Because when you're watching the news, they're teaching you, they're training you to take a perspective, to be in your preference, to be non-neutral. But when you turn that off and you just live and you turn off your judgment of things, right and wrong, then you're just living and you're enjoying people. You're enjoying the now. And I may be wrong, but to me, to get closer to God or source or the universe, that's when you live in the now. If you're future focused, past focused, that's not, in Christ consciousness or, being one with the energies. That's not how I interpret it. To be in the now is where I want to be. And I feel like everybody's trying to get to that place. And in my opinion, in order to get to that, neutrality is a big part of that. So episode 130, non-preference, giving you power and choice over your experiences, is the episode to look into if you want more information on that. And coming in at number 3 is divine order. Is pillar 1, basically, is everything is in divine order, whether I understand it or not. That has to do with a lot of what I would call spirituality and acceptance on life, which is really understanding the relationship of our being on this planet and source, God, oneness, all of that, the universe. Understanding that, Christians call God the Father, or Catholics, I think both of them do, but God the Father. There's a reason why we call God the Father, because we essentially have in the spiritual realm a parent-child relationship, where if you think back to when you were, or I guess if you're a parent or when you were a child, and you got candy and you just wanted to keep eating candy, and the parent took the candy away, said, no, you can only have a little bit because you'll get a stomach ache. Well, the kid doesn't understand that. The kid doesn't have the experiences of getting a stomach ache. The kid cannot see the cost. Basically, they haven't been taught the cost yet. And the parent is just trying to look out and teach them and guide them. Hey, this is what happens. I'm going to, prevent you from doing this so you don't have to go through that pain and suffering. And then as we get older, we understand the things that our parents did because we have that experience. We understand those costs. But this is the same relationship, which is we can't know what's best for us on our life path. But God the Father can. God the Father does. Oneness does. Universe does. So it's understanding that, having that respect, having that knowing that, hey, my relationship, God, universe, source, they're looking out for me. They know what's best for me on my life path. They know what lessons I need to learn. Because if I didn't need to learn them, then I wouldn't react the ways that I do. And I react the ways that I do in certain situations because I have to learn those lessons. So it's all cause and effect. It's all energy. It really is. It's all push and pull. It's all positive, negative charges. When you can look at the universe in this way, everything unlocks. It all makes sense. And once we understand that, then we can look at our own behavior and understand, hey, if I react this way, this is what's going to happen. It's just cause and effect. So divine order, I got off a little tangent there, but it's tremendously helped me. I've moved to Tennessee because of everything is in divine order, because I've been called here. I felt that calling internally that I was supposed to be here. I didn't question it. I knew nobody here. I just did it because I feel called here. I still don't know why I'm here. I've got back into bowling, things that I love. I've met some good people, but I mean, maybe that's why I'm here. I don't know. And maybe I'll never know, but I feel called to be here. When I feel called to be somewhere else, I will go. I'm just basically living my life path to the best of my intuition. And I keep that line of communication open. And, if I'm called to do something, I'm going to do it. I've gotten to the point where I've surrendered my life to what is internally communicated to me, because I've spent my whole life trying to mentally make choices in my life, and that has not gotten me anywhere. And the more in my opinion, the more we make mental choices that are in resistance to our lives, the more suffering we're going to have. And I just got tired of that. And I got to a point where I did enough work where I could finally hear that communication. And I've really stepped into it. So the first pillar, everything is in divine order, whether I understand it or not, has been so integral. I wanted to put it number one, but I've had two more that at this point in my life have played the biggest role in awakening, and we're going to get into those in a second. So if you want more information on the first pillar, or to grow and understand how to grow your own spirituality, episode 86, how to practice spirituality while doing the inner work. We also did an episode recently about spirituality, Alexander and I, our own individual episodes. So check that out. And number 2 on my list of most useful aspects of the Just philosophy on my self-growth journey is willpower versus trust. This balance of different energies that we have to call upon within our life, depending on what we're trying to do, when we're trying to take action, when we want something, when we have an intention. This is huge for me. I didn't understand it. I was always a heavy willpowered person in my life, like I think many of us are, because our culture teaches us to be that way. Teaches us that if you want something, you just go out and you just grind and you just get it and you just don't stop. And to a certain extent, that's true. It's not true for everybody. Me being a generator in the human design, it is true for me. But there's a balance there. Everything in moderation. You know that saying, everybody says that. Everything in moderation. When you're all willpower all the time, you're going to burn yourself out. There's going to be times when you're at a dead end and you're just going and you're not benefiting from just going. Like if you're in a maze, right, and you're practicing all willpower and you get to a dead end, do you just keep pounding the wall down to try to make a hole in the wall? I mean, that would be the all willpower way. Just like our military industrial complex is the all willpower way. But on the other side of that is trust. And trust is understanding that maybe now is not the right time for this. Like if you're in a maze, maybe, you took the wrong way and you need to trust that, you need to go back and there's going to be a different way. But over trusting, again, there's a perversion to trust as well, which is sitting around thinking that, like, if you want a job, that somebody's just going to come to your door, knock on it and say, hey, do you want a job? No. If you want things in life, you have to take action. But there's a balance there that we can perfect within our lives. And the important part of this that took me years to understand and many conversations with Alexander around it is because I just wanted a straight answer. Like, when am I supposed to be in willpower? When am I supposed to be in trust? When am I supposed to do things? Like I wanted a mental way of like, oh, here's the sign, you do this. Here's the sign, you do that. And again, there are signs, but it's not an external sign. It's an internal sign. All of this philosophy hinges on how it makes us feel. It's all about us, how we're feeling internally. That is our compass for understanding what's working and what's not. That is the most important aspect that took me a long time to get. And with willpower and trust, it was, okay, if I want a job, I need to put the applications in. I need to take that action. I need to do the things to put the universe in a situation where it can, match that job to me. But if I'm going every day, putting applications every day, just overloading people and like overdoing my resume, that's probably going to turn people off. And if I'm putting applications in and I'm getting upset that nobody's calling me back because I'm doing all this, I'm taking action on all this and nobody's calling me, I need to take a moment and probably adjust and maybe go more into trust, because I'm in willpower and that's causing internal frustration within me. So that's telling me willpower isn't working. Well, I mean, it may be at work, but it's not currently working for me. I need to take a step back and trust more. And then if I'm trusting that the right situation is going to come to me, and then I'll act on it, and then I'm feeling frustration because maybe 3 months went past and I need a job and the right situation hasn't come, then that frustration is a sign that I need to take action. So it's all about how we feel internally and how we adjust, stepping into willpower or stepping more into trust. This has been huge in my life. I've had to bring more trust in. As I just mentioned in number 3 on this list, I trusted that I was supposed to go to Tennessee, and here I am. I took willpower to make that happen, but I'm trusting that that's right for me because that's what I'm feeling internally. So if you want more on the willpower and trust argument, you can go to episode 22, How to Navigate the Balance Between Willpower and Trust. Of course, I think we just did a redo of this episode recently, so you can check that one out, but it's always best to go back to the oldie and work your way new. And number 1 on my list for the top 10 most useful aspects of the Just philosophy within my self-growth journey is polarity versus duality. And this is pillar number 2. And this has been huge for me in just taking out the unnecessary noise, the unnecessary friction within my life that we've been taught to have, where we're in constant judgment every day. What's good, what's bad, what's good, what's evil, what's of God, and what's of Satan. All of this is in existence on this plane of polarity, on this earth, in this reality that we live in. There's always been good and there's always been bad. So we're creating our own suffering by thinking that we have to find and rid the world of all the evil, because I think it was Einstein that said energy cannot be destroyed. It can change into different forms, but it cannot be destroyed. So if we go and we remove evil from, let's say, the government, that evil is just going to go somewhere else. It's going to pop up somewhere else. There's always going to be evil and good in very similar amounts. That's the balance. That's why we're here. This is like a playground of working on ourselves. And we need that contrast to understand where our friction is so that we can take action to work on that within ourselves. If we didn't have contrasting views, if we didn't have the polarities, then we wouldn't be able to experience the other. So both are necessary. This is just so huge for me to understand on my journey. Like, you have to experience sadness in order to understand what happiness is. When something good happens and you're in that joy, it's cool to experience that. But it's also cool to understand that when you're in sadness, experience that. Because if you detach in those moments of sadness, then you're not really learning what happiness is, because you're not feeling that. So, and if you're not feeling that sadness to a depth that's gonna help you make a choice to change, then how can you ever be happy? I feel like this is huge, and it's just coming into my brain right now, because I always feel my emotions deeply, and they are the catalyst for helping me to make better decisions in the future for myself, to set myself up so I don't need to feel that suffering again. But there are people who don't allow themselves to feel the sadness. There are people who take prescription drugs to not feel the sadness. And I'm just saying this as an observation, and I'm not saying that I'm not judging it, it's wrong or right. But when you're not allowed to feel that, then you can't take the appropriate action, because you don't want to feel that way anymore. You can't use it as a catalyst to go the other way, to find contentment, to find happiness, to do better for yourself. You're just kind of in a state of blah. And if you're in a state of blah, then but you're not even neutral either, because you haven't had a chance to find neutrality, because you don't know happiness or sadness. And you can't find neutrality unless you know both of those, and then you make a decision to be neutral. And this, in my life, helped me to understand the cost of activism, and to understand, for me, it's pointless. Like, I used to be so big on trying to make a change in the world. And I'm not saying that I don't want to see a change in the world. I do. But I know that it comes from me first. It comes from my responsibility onto myself to change myself first. And if I change myself and how I react to things, then I'm not dumping my stuff out on other people, which is causing them to overfill and dump their stuff out onto other people. And I'm being a beacon for other people. I'm being an inspiration for other people to be like, hey, I like how you manage that. I would like to learn how to do that. But by thinking that we're going to change the world by holding a sign and yelling and spitting on the other side, and the biggest part of this that really helped me with this was, when we take a side and we feed energy into a side, the opposing side grows, because if we have a certain perspective on one side, there's always an equal and opposite perspective on the other. Same with energy. So, because really perspectives are just energy, how much we dump our energy, how much we're emotional, how much we're angry at, taking one side. So I think the media created this hatred for Donald Trump by saying that he did all these things and keeping that message consistent. And so people took that side. But then by taking the hatred side of Donald Trump, they created the pro side of Donald Trump. So they created Donald Trump by creating the hatred of him. So if they really wanted him to go away, they would be neutral. They wouldn't give him the energy. It's just like when people tell you, don't give that person the energy. It's like, I have an older cat named Bella, and she's so paranoid and just on edge all the time. And when my youngest cat comes around and gets anywhere near her, she'll preemptively hiss and growl. And then he sees it as a challenge, because he's like, oh okay, she wants to play. So then he attacks her and chases her. Like, she creates that. If she didn't do that, he would rarely want to chase her. I could go on and on about, number one, about polarity versus duality, about how this plays into empaths and narcissists. We have an episode on that. If you search empaths or narcissists on our website, you can find that episode. It's a huge one. So if you want to check out more on the polarity versus duality, we have an episode number 14, polarity versus duality and the role of acceptance when judging what is right and wrong. Of course, this is just a small aspect of polarity versus duality. We have way more other episodes on this topic, but they come in different forms. So if you search acceptance, anytime acceptance is brought up, it's usually around polarity versus duality. Polarity is understanding that both are necessary to exist, good and evil, on this plane. And duality is when you take a side and you're like, no, evil cannot exist. I'm supposed to rid evil. Like, you're going to be angry your entire life trying to do that, because there's no way you're going to be able to rid evil from this world. But again, it's all priorities. It's all, where you want to put your energy. And it's just understanding how all this stuff works and then applying it into your life, looking at how you interact with energies, certain energies, how you think about all these things. And then when you realize that you're doing something that affects you in a detrimental way in your, observation, and you want to make a change, then you can tap into the right tool, utilize it, and just do that consistent work. And over a little bit of time, you'll start to see a difference. And then look at me. I started 8 years ago. I can't believe it's been 8 years. And I'm just a totally different person. I've had so many dark nights of the soul, because every time we peel a layer off, there's some more stuff that comes up to the surface, and we just have to keep doing it. And the more we do it, the easier it gets and the less stuff we have. So I am beyond in gratitude for this philosophy, for Alexander, and for you guys who are, doing your part in this world, and for yourselves in working on you, or even just have an interest in working on you, I am so grateful, sending out my gratitude to you guys. And I'm so fortunate to be a part of this information. I think about it all the time, and I never thought I'd be in this situation. I never thought I would be interested in self-growth work. And I can't be in gratitude enough that I know what I know, and I'm able to utilize this information to make my life better and live this way. There's so many other people that are so less fortunate than I am, even on the emotional end, just not even understanding that emotions control you, and why they're there, and how to utilize them for your growth, and how to manage them. And I'm just so grateful, because I used to be in that situation, and I don't want to be there anymore. So I continue to work on me, and that's all we can do. And I implore you to keep working on you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I know Alexander thanks you guys too. Just keep doing the work. We're here if you have any questions. A lot of these episodes are in our archived catalog, so you may have to purchase a subscription to our back catalog, and that just goes to support us to afford equipment. We don't get paid for doing this. Our equipment and our software costs, we have monthly expenses. So that does help us to continue to do this. So I appreciate you guys if you can do that and give to us monetarily. But if you can't, just sharing word of mouth, subscribing to our YouTube channel, liking our posts, our videos, leaving comments, asking questions, all of this, just giving energy to this community that we're trying to build goes a long way, and sometimes more than monetarily. So we appreciate anything that you can do for us, and because then it will be back onto you. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this free version of the Wise podcast. To hear the complete conversation and go deeper into the application of the tools and techniques of the Just philosophy, head on over to wisewisepodcast.com and become a premium member. You'll get to hear all of our complete conversations, including the complete episodes of our Inward Journey story series and our entire back catalog, and continue your self-development journey with us. We honor your dedication to self-growth, overall wellness, and continuing to ask the wise whys.
And remember, gradual changes over long periods of time equals lasting results.
Continue on your self-growth journey by visiting thejustphilosophy.com, where you are able to connect personally by booking a private consultation with Alexander in person, by phone, or Zoom. Uncover your authentic self more easily with a human design or destiny card consultation. Here you will gain information about your energetic makeup, personality, and your higher self, as well as navigating your way through your relationships. There are also multiple types of reports available for purchase that help you gain insight into your career, relationships, and opportunities for self-growth. The site also allows you to view a calendar of Alexander's live performances and class schedule, peruse other products such as shirts, CDs, and finally, the revolutionary VibroTune vibrational sound therapy tables. These contoured therapy tables allow you to bathe in a vibrational sonic bath of frequencies, bringing you into alignment on all levels. You will be feeling and hearing calming music synced through vibration and frequency. So again, you can grab all this goodness at thejustphilosophy.com, thejustphilosophy.com. The Just Philosophy, as discussed in this podcast, has been developed by Alexander over the last 25 years in his personal studies, private practice, and professional environment. The information discussed is intended for educational purposes only and is not meant as a replacement for conventional medicine. Just remember, knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. Seek the wise. We want to thank you for working on you. Keep shining your light and refining your vibe.